Hello, my name is Adriel, and today I will, more like in this video, I will show you what I rock in my Magoroku, what I usually use in Magoroku Fugen, which is contains Jamyo Kongo and Goinohi as a multi-attack engine. And let's get started by, I have 4 Magoroku Fugens, 2 Jamyo Kongo, 2 Mizukaze, and 1 Fuzen Kongo. Magoroku Fugen, self-explanatory. The whole deck revolves on this card. I don't want to explain a lot, but this is basic. Imagine Morpesa, Great for Morpesa. That's it. Yeah, just imagine Great for Morpesa. This is a card. It's slightly like way weaker Great to Morpesa. That's what I'm trying to say. Jamio Kongo, self-explanatory. It's this is your first ride, no, like 90% of the time this is gonna be your first ride. If their hand is like 8 or more, usually 8 is where it's worth it to ride Jamio Kongo, but other than that, Magoroku Fugen all the way. Mizukaze, I don't need to explain why Mizukaze works because Mizukaze is a card. And Fuzen Kongo for your finisher, one of your finishers. You have 2 finisher in this deck, and Fuzen Kongo becomes an unguardable 2 crit if the game goes for too long and you have 5 damage. And because of Magoroku Fugen helps the +1 crit to the front row, Fuzen Kongo becomes useful in a way. You only run one of this because you realistically only go to one Fuzen Kongo, and that is if you go to Fuzen Kongo. So yeah, that's a great 3 lineup. I run 9 of it. My grade 2 will be 2 Goinohi, 2 Magatsu Storm, Magatsu Gale, 3 Mishibuki, 4 Kageyogachi. I'm going to explain Kageyogachi first. Free tokens enables Magoroku Fugen to be way more reliable. You run this as a 4 because free things, why not? This is basically Sylvia, but with tokens, evil decoy tokens instead of plant tokens, and it also gives plant token. It also gives the evil decoy tokens boost and +5k if you soul blast one. And I'm going Yamishibuki, self-explanatory. Big power, gives 2 tokens, boost Magoroku Fugen even better, and it basically doubles Magoroku Fugen's skill for his own because he gains +5k for each grade 0. Magoroku Fugen gives +5k to the front row for each grade 0. So if you have a token, instead of getting the +15 by Magoroku Fugen himself, totally he becomes like 39k 2 crits or 49k 2 crits. That's basically a sentinel, at least once, like a sentinel or 2 triggers or a lot more, and it's this is why it's powerful. You don't really need to think that much. Magatsu Gale, your drop, I only run 2 because it's you only realistically only need 2 in this deck, at least in my opinion. You only need 2. This is a very glass cannon deck. Turn 5 win or a turn 5 lose. That's basically what I'm trying to enforce here. Because Nuba is in a like, it's not in a good position, but it's way better than some other decks. But it's realistically Nuba is not a good V deck overall. That's why you really want to go class cannon on this deck. That's why you only run 2 Jamio Kongo. I'll explain why I only run 2 Jamyo later in the grade 1 lineup. When I run 2 Goinohi, this is basically your ha ha he he funny finisher. Turns your 3 attack Magoroku Fugen to a 4 attack for Magoroku Fugen. If you have 2 face up counterblast, you're going to have a lot of face up counterblast because this deck realistically doesn't really need a lot of counterblast. Unless you're spamming protect markers, which in some scenarios is maybe useful. But yeah, use 4 attacks if you have 2 face up, gives you 5 attack if you have 4 face up. It's just a really nice card to have. You only run this as 2 off because realistically, you either go to Goinohi or you go to Fuzen Congo. You usually don't go to both in the same turn, but if you go to both, your opponent is pretty much dead, and that's way too overkill, in my opinion. So, yeah. For the Grade 1 lineup, for Unen, for Sakura Fubuki, for Katarigitsune, one um, Kurogiri. The grade 3 searchers, you run this as a 4 off. Your first ride will always be Jamyo Kongo, and you hopefully get another grade 3 to use Unen skill later on. But you basically run this as a 4 off, and it gains 5k if you have a token. So basically, this becomes a 28k 2 crit attacker if you have Magoroku Fugen. Sakura Fubuki, no explanation. Counter charge, counter charge, counter charge. It works well with Goinohi because you most likely will have 2 face up damage, and it becomes a 26k attacker if you have Magoroku Fugen. Kurogi Soul Blast 2 gains 2 tokens, but if you have Magoroku Fugen, it becomes 3, up to 3. It's very useful to have like a panic button if you have nothing else. Because Magoroku Fugen requires 3 for the plus crit to the front row. That's it, yeah. That's why you run Kurogiri. And then run for Unen. Unen is your 4 off in 99% of decks because it gives you grade 3 if you ride on it. It gives you a grade 3 soul, especially if you're playing Yamio Fongo. That's why you run this as a 4 off. In my opinion, since this deck runs only 2 Jamio Kongo, this 2 as a 4 off is non-negotiable because you want Jamio Kongo is your first ride always. And yeah, that's it for the great ones. Oh yeah, by the way, Unan gives you up to 2 tokens if you have Magoroku Fugen, which is very nice if you pair it up with the Kageyugachi, the new grade 2, because it totals of 3 up to 3 tokens if you really want it. If you really need it, but you usually have 3 tokens anyways because of Yamishibuki or Magatsu Gale. But sometimes if you want a guard and you only need that 5k, you're usually wasting a grade 2, which you really want your grade 2s in your hand. Since this specific deck doesn't really run like you only run 2 offs, 2 off, 3 off. The only 4 off that you run is the new grade 2. That's why you gotta preserve the grade 2s in your hand. And again, this is a glass cannon deck. You die at turn 5 if you even live to turn 5. Or you kill at turn 5, but you usually go to like the 4th turn max. That's what I've been like consistent dead being like died at turn 4 or you kill at turn 4 because your opponent has just your opponent basically has only 4 cards in hand. This is like again, this is a very high roll deck. When this deck goes through, your opponent needs to guard 5 attacks with 4 cards in hand, and they all are 2 crits. So basically, if they are dumb enough to take 2 damage, they're usually like 2 damage, hell, even 3 damage. You attack with a Vanguard first, pressure for the crit, and then hope for that you get a crit. And Magoroku Fugen, if they're at 4 damage, even if they're at 5 damage, their hand is usually about 6 or 7, but no sentinels, meaning that they need to like guard with a lot of shield. Let's say that your opponent have like 30k, 33k their running force, and they got 2 trigger checks. You bind 15 cards in your drop. That's already 5 times 7 plus 75k plus 75k for the 3. Most likely 3 tokens gonna be in your back row. That's 90k, 102, 2 crits before the triggers. And let's say you get a crit. That's 112 2 crits, no sentinels. They basically got a guard with so they're at 33. So they need 70k guard, and they only have 4 cards in hand. Usually, if you're at 5 damage, you usually want to take 5 damage as much as possible. Again, this is a very glass cannon deck. At least from my experience against like meta decks like Rugged Prism. 5 damage. Pray to God that they only have 4 cards in hand, and pray to God that you have Goinohi in hand. Because if you can manage it, your opponent should be dead. Gurgut is different because they have the counterblast skill where you can check top 5 and call to the Guardian Circle. But pray to God that you have Mizukaze, because Mizukaze is very useful. This is Mizukaze, yeah. This is why you use Mizukaze to prevent like your opponent only having a grade 0s, grade 1s. Most likely, in that scenario, they only have like grade 0s, grade 1s, rarely grade 2s, and never grade 3s. Like a lot of the time, they're only grade 3 if they has the heal in hand. And your attack goes for like 20k shield, 25k shield, 20k shield, 25k shield, 30k shield, 35k shield. And with Fugen, it's basically 2 damage must. And by the way, you really want to rush with this deck. There's no downside to not rushing. Your Kageugachi gives you tokens, boost in plus 5k. You call 2, pray to God, like Soul Blast 2. You don't have no soul, but it's fine. You have 2 tokens, 19k beat sticks, and 19k columns. Your opponent checks a 3. If they're not a force, if they're not at grade 2, and they're not like in the 10k base and above, if they check a trigger, they're either going to be at 19 or at 18 most of the time. So they're going to be either at 19 or 18. So even with a defensive or even with the heal guardian, the heal grade 3s, they still need to place a 5k later for the other attacks. And usually the best kind of board is when you're agreed to turn Kaigachi on the Vanguard, Kaigachi on the rear guard, and one Yamishibuki on the other side. 19k columns, no soul. 19 because you soul last two. 19k columns. Yamishibuki on the side. Attack. Yamishibuki attacks. Yamishibuki is gonna be 29. These two columns gonna be 19. And yeah, even with 2 triggers, most like with that board, your opponent still needs to do something with it unless they're at again a base of 10k and above. And we're going to go to the triggers. I run 1 normal draw, 4 draw PGs, 7 crits, 4 heals, and your obligate and your mandatory starter. I don't want to explain the starter because it's a starter. For heals, for grade 3 heals, no explain. I don't need to explain why. And 7 crits for draw PGs. Um, I'm gonna explain the draws first. You can run 6 draws, 6 crits, or 5 draws, and then like 7 crits. You can basically change, like you can run 4 crits, 8 draws. Like it's all up to you. I just prefer 5 draws, sometimes 6 if I feel that my luck isn't there. But if I'm going to the big tournament, you're already playing Nugatama, so you're gonna be a high roll. Just play the 7 crits, in my opinion. If you check a crit, there's gonna be 2 damage to your. Like if you check an early crit, that would help your board immensely and help you to turn 4 kill your opponent, hopefully. Because again, this specific deck, my deck isn't really built for like I'm going to go to turn 7, hopefully, like War of Attrition. No, with my deck, you're more or less stuck to being a glass cannon because the meta is just so cute right now. They have so many cards in hand, so many power, like a lot of power. They don't need crits, like they don't need effects that gives them crits because they have that much power. Like Prism, like gives like a lot of power to the board, have a lot of cards in hand. Gurgut have a lot of flags and a lot of power. Their hand is also thick. With Gurgut's skill, it's even worse. Um, what other else? Oh yeah, your only weakness with this deck is the one that board wipes. Basically, Narukami. But again, if you fight, like you're not gonna live through turn 5 either way with 99% of decks. And even if you live through it, it's because you get a trigger or your opponent misplayed or you got really lucky or your opponent just being dumb. But that's the same case in you're being lucky because your opponent's, you get an easy opponent at that point. This deck hates Vanquisher, so if you're playing against Vanquisher, just be patient. I mean be patient, I mean just don't be mad. This deck is not built against Vanquisher. This deck is built for not for any deck, but for a turn 4 kill. You either die at turn 4 or turn 5, you live in turn 4, turn 5 and kill your opponent. This deck wants to go first, like every single other deck. Going first gives so much advantage in V. Um, yeah, I know that my voice is like worn out, or I basically lost my voice because Daivangasai and Shirokuro is literally yesterday and the 2 days before. So yeah, um, I attended Daivangasai, I attended Standard, and I attended Wise Wars. For the first day, yeah, first day Standard, the second day Wise Wars. I attended D because I don't have my premium stuff. And even if I do have my premium stuff, I thought like here, I thought like I can get my clan king cards, but turns out I don't. So yeah. Um and with Shirakuro it's the same thing but slightly better because it's wise. Even if I'm not I'm not too competitive in wise, but still it's a like card games. And yeah, I'm sorry if this video is like doesn't really explain a lot, just gives through like a lot of my deck and how I think about the deck. It's because like if you're searching for a specific deck list, You should know what the card does. You should know what the card actually do, because you're searching for a specific deck. You don't really need the explanation for each of the cards, because you should know how you should know how like their abilities and stuff like that. That's why I don't really explain a lot. And even if you need to explain a lot, you should do your own research. Like you should probably like read the card effects. This is not a direct attack to like a lot of the deck building. It's just the fact that if you're searching for a deck list, you understand, like you should understand what the card does. But but if you're searching for deck list, like it's only for a guide. And yeah, in my eyes, deck lists are just a guide on how you build a deck. This is a guide on how I build a deck. This is how like I think about the deck, because Magoroku Fugen has Magoroku Fugen is only like two, not two, but it's not a lot of plays now. You can go protect two and go ham, or you go to protect one and have slightly better survivability. If I'm fighting prisms, I need like if I'm fighting prisms, protect one is my answer. If I'm fighting Gurgit, I'm gonna die either way at turn four. At like turn four if I'm going second. So why not just go to like protect two or something? Unless the situation says so, I will not go to protect one, because I know if I'm going second against a Gurgit, I will die. Even if they get Percival, if they get Percival, I die. If they don't get Percival, I still die. That's how I feel about Gurgit. Is that you, especially with this, especially with Nubatama. Nubatama is prone to multi-attack, especially multi-attack with high power. With Eglo Veil, they have too much cards in hand, which is why you go to Jamyo Kongo first. Against like 99% of decks, you want to go to Jamyo Kongo first, unless the scenario specifically calls to not go to Jamyo Kongo and go to straight to Magoroku Fugen, because Magoroku Fugen gives enough power for your opponent to basically think a lot more than they need to. So yeah, and by the way, I think this is like common sense right now, but if you see Jamio Congo, if you fighting against Jamio Congo and you see a Jamio Congo goes into your opponent's hand, especially in the early game, rush them. Rush them with your whole hand, like leave out like 6, 7 cards in hand, and then just and the rest of them just rush your opponent, because Jamie Congo is prone to being rushed. It does nothing if you have have 6 cards in hand. Your opponent goes to Jamie Congo, so what? You're at 6 cards in hand. You don't discard. This is the whole weakness to Jamie Congo, is to just rush your opponent. But this is why like I like Magoroku Fugen, because it counteracts that with you either choose to go to Jamio Congo or you choose to go to Magoroku Fugen, but you're still gonna get rushed either way. Nubatama, especially with rushing, it's not, they can die easily. Even with the tokens, if you get if they commit to the rush, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do unless you have a heal guardian in hand. And a lot of the times you have one, but for the one time, like for the like every 5 games that you don't have a grade 3 heal in hand, it sucks to get rushed. Your opponent rush, especially this deck does not like fighting against Spike Brothers. Does not like against fighting against Spike Brothers, fighting against Tachikaze, fighting against what is it called? Hamsuke. This deck does not like to fight them because you don't have any war wipes. You don't have like anything to make a stable board if you get rushed. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry if this again. I'm sorry if this video is short because again, I Shirokuro Daivangasai big tournament literally yesterday. And again, I don't really explain what the card actually does. I just explain like why you run the cards. Um, and especially like you and something like Mizukaze, I don't really need to explain what it actually does because you really at this point a lot of people already know what Mizukaze does. If they don't, look it up yourself. Don't be lazy, look it up yourself unless you really want to know the specifics. Then you can go to like an explanation, like the um, Vanguard has, especially Japanese Vanguard has a page where there's a Q&A page, so more detailed questions can be found there. And since they're actually from official Bushiroad, that's that's the best source that you can have. If you don't want to do that, ask someone else. You're you're searching for a deck this obscure. If you're playing Nubatama, you have multiple playstyles. In my opinion, in Japan, in the Japanese format, this is probably the best because everything is so glass can at this point. And for English, in my opinion, go with chicken. Like Jamyo Kongo Hanzo chicken, please. Your opponent stuck at zero hand, and yeah, that's in my opinion that's the best like deck for English for Dobatama. Jamyo Kongo zero hand. I know it's very high roll, but that's one of your only choices to like if you actually want to win with Nubatama, which is if you want to win, why not use meta? If you don't have enough money, there's a lot more decks better than Magoroku Fugen. That's actually cheaper than Magoroku Fugen because with Magoroku Fugen you can really find these obscure cards, and a lot of the obscure cards it's hard to find. Even if it's not hard to find, it's like really sometimes the price is not on your side, especially with Yamishibuki. I don't know how much Yamishibuki cost in English, but the card is stable, and I imagine it's like $5 each. But yeah, this is the whole deck. Um, I'm sorry if I sound like shit because God, I'm just tired. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you like it, do the normal YouTube stuff. Subscribe, like, or something like that. I don't give two shits. I just make this video because I want to make these videos. And I'll see you later. Goodbye.